A lone dancer moves in a dim hall, their body whispering a story older than written words. This is not just a performance, it is a living, breathing archive. We are about to explore the echoes in motion, revealing the historical narratives hidden within traditional dances. This matters now more than ever, because these movements offer a unique lens into cultures and histories that official records have often overlooked or erased. What if the key to unlocking a forgotten past was not in a dusty book, but in the graceful arc of an arm or the rhythmic stamp of a foot? By the end of this journey, you will be able to look at any traditional dance and see the secret history it has been safeguarding for generations. We will decode the martial secrets locked in European sword dances and uncover tales of resistance preserved in the rhythms of the African diaspora. How have these physical stories survived when so many written records have turned to dust? What forgotten chapter of your own heritage might be waiting, not in a text but in a dance? Flames lick at the night sky, casting long shadows on a circle of faces. This is not a campfire for warmth alone. It is a classroom. Before parchment or stone tablets, the human body itself was the most durable medium for recording what mattered. A successful hunt was reenacted not just to celebrate, but to teach the strategies that ensured survival. The path of the stars was traced with a pointing finger and a turning body, charting the heavens in a way everyone could understand and remember. Anthropologist Judith Lynn Hanna called dance a visible heartbeat, a perfect description for this primal pulse of shared life. Every rhythmic step and synchronized formation was a line of code in humanity's first living library. Choreography encoded the very structure of a community: who led, who followed, and how they supported one another. Repetitive, cyclical patterns often mirrored the dependable turning of the seasons or the phases of the moon. A swift, fluttering motion of the hands might tell the story of a butterfly, while a heavy, stomping step could evoke the thunderous power of a buffalo. In Australian Aboriginal corroborees, this concept reaches its zenith. Dancers become the ancestral beings of the dreamtime, their movements physically charting the paths across the land, creating a living map of sacred geography and creation myths with every step. So we must ask, how do our own movements today, from a simple nod of agreement to the way we walk down a street, still carry faint echoes of that ancient, fundamental need to communicate our place in the world and to belong to something greater than ourselves? This deep-seated human impulse to encode meaning in motion sets the stage for understanding the specific, powerful symbols hidden in the dances that followed. The clash of steel rings out across the cobblestones, not in anger but in rhythm. In a village square, dancers weave between one another, their mock swords crossing and uncrossing in a complex, aggressive ballet. This is our first clear echo from the past, a narrative of war and conquest preserved not in ink, but in motion. Across Europe, from the swift rapper sword dances of England to the stately German Schwertanz, these traditions are far more than festive performance. They are symbolic reenactments of historical battles, covert training exercises for combat, and powerful rituals intended to ensure victory or honor the fallen. As one folklorist noted, in times of enforced peace, when weapons might be forbidden, these dances became a vital way to preserve essential martial skills and unit cohesion from one generation to the next. Every movement is a lesson. The dramatic moment when swords are locked together into a star or a knot is not just for show. It represents the unbreakable unity of the warrior band, a physical manifestation of their reliance on one another in the line of battle. The intricate, rapid footwork is not merely decorative. It directly mimics the evasive sidesteps, the sudden advances, and the coordinated retreats required on a chaotic battlefield. Even the circular formation common to many of these dances holds profound meaning. It can symbolize the ancient shield wall, a defensive ring where every person protects their neighbor. On a deeper level, this circle can also represent the cyclical nature of human conflict itself, the inevitable turning from war to peace and back again. Consider the Basque Espata danza, where dancers wield heavy, metal-tipped staffs. Its powerful, stomping movements are a vibrant celebration of local identity and a defiant performance of resistance against centuries of cultural pressure. It is a dance that says, "We are still here." So what modern activities fulfill this same deep-seated need? From team sports to military drills, we still engage in highly choreographed group movements that build trust, prepare us for collective challenges, and reinforce a shared identity. These dances remind us that our bodies have long been the first and most reliable tool for remembering how to survive together. Across the Atlantic, a different kind of echo was being forged in fire and sorrow. Enslaved Africans, stripped of their languages and torn from their homelands, performed a miracle of memory. They wove their stolen histories into the very movements of their bodies, creating an unbreakable chain of cultural survival right under the watchful eyes of their oppressors. This is our second narrative, a testament to the human spirit's refusal to be erased. In the brutal conditions of the Americas, dance became a clandestine act of preservation, a vessel for holding onto everything that was forbidden, from gods and ancestral stories to the very maps of home. Dances like Brazil's capoeira and the ring shout from the southern United States were not mere recreation. They were sophisticated systems of resistance and spiritual fortitude. As one scholar of African diasporic cultures explains, the complex polyrhythms of the drums became a coded language, a way to communicate that slave masters could not understand. The body itself became a living archive, speaking in a tongue that could not be whipped away. Consider capoeira, which plantation owners were encouraged to see as a playful, acrobatic game. This perception was a deliberate and life-saving deception. The dance's foundational movement, the jinga, is a constant, swaying motion designed to evade attack and create openings, a direct translation of combat footwork into a fluid, dance-like step. Every cartwheel and spinning kick was a rehearsed fighting technique, every low, sweeping movement a practice for taking down an opponent. The circle of practitioners, the Roda, was not just an audience. It was a training ground where enslaved people could practice self-defense and even secretly plot escape, all while singing songs that, to the uninitiated, sounded like simple folk tunes but were actually laden with directions and coded messages. Similarly, the ring shout held profound spiritual meaning. Participants moved in a circle, shuffling counterclockwise, their feet never crossing. To outsiders, it appeared as a simple religious expression. But that counterclockwise motion was a direct, conscious preservation of West African cosmological beliefs, mirroring the movement of the sun and the path of the spirits in many traditional religions. The call and response patterns between the song leader and the group were not just musical. They were the structure of communal storytelling, a way to collectively recall and reaffirm their shared identity and faith, reinforcing a community that the institution of slavery sought to shatter. This tradition of embedding narrative continued in forms like the Cuban rumba. In its vibrant, percussive movements, dancers would often act out stories of daily life, offering sharp social commentary or humorously portraying figures of authority, a subtle but powerful way to critique their condition and maintain a sense of agency. So we must ask, in the face of overwhelming oppression, what does it mean to keep your culture alive, not in books or buildings, but in the bend of your knee and the clap of your hands? What forms of silent, powerful resistance do we witness in our world today, where spirit and memory triumph over force? From these stories of human resilience, our journey now turns to the narratives that were not just performed on the land, but were woven directly from its soil and stones. A circle of dancers sways beneath a limitless sky, their feet touching the earth in a rhythm that feels as old as the land itself. This is our third narrative, one where movement becomes a living map and a sacred calendar, encoding the wisdom of the natural world into the bodies of a community. For many indigenous peoples, such as numerous Native American tribes, these circle dances are not mere tradition. They are profound acts of remembrance, charting migratory paths of animals, marking the turning of seasons, and tracing the sacred geography of their homelands. An indigenous elder once spoke of the phrase, "all my relations." This is not just a saying, it is a worldview, a recognition of the deep kinship between humans, animals, plants, and the earth itself. Dance is a physical prayer that reinforces this interconnectedness, reminding everyone that they are part of a vast, living web. The circular formation itself is a universe of meaning. It represents the unending cycle of life, death, and rebirth. It honors the four cardinal directions, each one holding its own teachings and spiritual significance. And it places the community physically at the center of this cosmos, a living part of the whole, not separate from it. Every gesture and step carries specific, accumulated knowledge. The light, hopping steps of a dancer might perfectly imitate the cautious gait of a deer, passing on observational knowledge of hunting and respect for the animal. The timing of the entire dance is often tied directly to celestial events, performed at the solstice to welcome the sun back or during the harvest to give thanks for the bounty of the land. This deep connection finds one of its most powerful expressions in the sun dance ceremony of the Plains peoples. This is a profound spiritual narrative of sacrifice and renewal, where dancers fast and pray for the renewal of their people and all of creation, their gaze fixed upon the central tree, which represents the axis of the world itself. Their suffering is an offering for the greater good, a physical testament to their responsibility to the web of life. Can you feel how our modern lives have drifted from this intimate dialogue with the world around us? We mark time on digital screens, not by the position of the sun, and we navigate by satellite, not by the stories held in the land. These dances stand as a powerful reminder of a different way of knowing, one rooted in place and reciprocal relationship. And just as movement can map a landscape, it can also celebrate the human hands that shape it, telling stories of cultivation and community born from the soil. The sweat on a farmer's brow finds its rhythm in the stomp of a boot and the swing of an arm. Across village squares from Italy to the Korean countryside, the story of survival shifts from the sacred circle to the planted field. This is our fourth narrative, the rhythms of labor and harvest etched into the very muscles of communities. Watch a folk dance, and you are witnessing the muscular memory of an entire way of life, a physical record of how people fed themselves and weathered the seasons. An ethnochoreologist once described dance as just that, the muscular memory of a community's economic life, a profound idea that transforms every step from performance into living testimony. These dances were far from simple entertainment. They were deeply functional, serving to synchronize the efforts of an entire village during planting or harvest, to celebrate a hard-won yield, and to pass essential agricultural skills from elders to the young, all within a joyous communal setting. Look closely at the props. The scythes, the flails, the baskets carried by the dancers are not stage decorations. They are the actual tools of daily survival, transformed into instruments of art and meaning. Their use in the dance directly links the movement to the labor, celebrating the tool that ensured the community's continuity. Take the vibrant, spinning frenzy of the Italian tarantella. Its famous whirling energy is often linked to a mythical spider bite, but many scholars see a deeper, more practical origin. This cathartic, explosive dance may have served as a vital release from the back-breaking monotony and intense physical strain of rural peasant life, a way for the body to shake off the exhaustion of the field and reaffirm the joy of being alive. In stark contrast, consider the measured, deliberate steps of many Slavic harvest dances. Here, the dancers' bodies become a living mirror of the agrarian cycle. A low, bending motion perfectly replicates the act of sowing seeds into the earth. A wide, sweeping arm movement mimics the cutting of wheat with a scythe. The collective, rhythmic stomping can evoke the threshing of grain on the threshing floor. Every gesture is a lesson in the practical poetry of cultivation. This tradition finds a spectacular expression in Korean nongak, a farmer's dance that is a whirlwind of music, acrobatics, and deep ritual. Dancers, often wearing vibrant costumes and tall hats, play drums and gongs while performing breathtaking spins and jumps. The entire performance is not just a celebration after the fact. It is a communal prayer in motion, an energetic plea for a bountiful harvest, and a ritual to drive away malevolent spirits that might threaten the crops. The powerful, synchronized drumming itself seems to echo the collective heartbeat of the community, united in its dependence on the land. It makes you wonder, what would a future historian deduce about our lives today by watching our dominant movements? Would they see the story of our labor in the repetitive tap of fingers on a keyboard, the hunched shoulders over a screen, the hurried walk to a meeting? Our bodies still tell the story of how we spend our days, even if we are no longer sowing seeds by hand. And just as these dances document the work of the many, they also reveal the intricate and often rigid structures of power and status that govern the dancers' lives. The mirrored halls of a Baroque palace shimmer with candlelight, a world away from the farmers' fields. Here, in the measured grace of the minuet, we find our fifth narrative, the subtle but unyielding encoding of social hierarchy and gender roles. Every sweep of a silk gown, every precise angle of a bow, was a silent declaration of one's place in a rigidly ordered world. These courtly dances were not merely entertainment. They were sophisticated tools of statecraft, a non-verbal language where political alliances could be suggested, favor could be curried, and social standing was performed for a watchful audience of one's peers and superiors. A historian of European etiquette notes that the dance master was as crucial as the fencing instructor, for he taught the aristocratic body how to move with the restraint and elegance that visibly separated the noble from the common. The choreography itself was a map of power. The order in which couples took the floor was a public ranking, with the highest nobility dancing first. The patterns traced upon the floor were not random. They created intricate geometries of proximity and distance, controlling who interacted with whom and for how long. The depth of a man's bow precisely calibrated his respect for a lady's rank and his own station. A bow too shallow was an insult. A bow too deep could be seen as fawning. The differences between male and female roles were equally prescribed and revealing. The man's part was often one of clear leadership and support. He guided his partner through the complex figures, his movements projecting confidence and control, his posture upright and commanding. The lady's role, in contrast, was a study in refined modesty and receptivity. Her steps were smaller, her gestures more contained, her gaze often demurely lowered. Her grace was not just aesthetic, it was a performance of the virtue and compliance expected of her station. This theatrical reinforcement of social order was a global phenomenon. In Japan, the slow, deliberate, and highly stylized movements of no theater were not for the masses. They were the exclusive art of the samurai class, their every gesture and footfall reflecting the immense self-control, discipline, and decorum demanded of a warrior noble. The body was trained to move in a way that screamed status without uttering a single word. So what do our own social dances whisper about us today? When we look at the freeform movements of a modern club or the partnered dynamics of a salsa, what do they reveal about our evolving, and perhaps still contested, concepts of gender, power, and individual expression? The rigid structures of the court sought to fix people in their place, but the human spirit has always yearned for a different kind of movement, one that transcends social boundaries and seeks a direct connection to the divine. A rhythmic tide of bodies flows up a mountain path, their footsteps a collective drumbeat ascending toward a distant shrine. This is the sixth narrative, the pilgrim's progress made flesh, where the journey itself becomes a living prayer. In traditions from the festive Romeria dances of Spain to the intensely devotional Hindu Kavadiyatam, movement does not simply accompany faith. It physically enacts the entire spiritual narrative of sacrifice, struggle, and the yearning for divine connection. A religious studies scholar might describe this as the body becoming a temple, not a static building, but a moving, breathing sanctuary where every step is an act of worship. The choreography is a direct map of the soul's arduous journey. Pilgrims often carry heavy burdens, both literal and symbolic. In Kavadiyatam, devotees bear ornate, peacock-feathered structures pierced into their skin, a physical testament to their penance and devotion, transforming their bodies into vessels of sacrifice. The path they walk is rarely a straight line. Circling a holy tree, a sacred stone, or a temple spire is a universal motif, a kinetic echo of orbiting the divine center of one's universe. The entire progression of the dance often mirrors stages of spiritual enlightenment, beginning with slow, weighted steps representing the toil of earthly existence, gradually building in energy and lightness as the dancer approaches a symbolic state of grace. This physical exertion is not meant to punish the body, but to transcend it. The repetitive, rhythmic footwork, the constant swaying motion, and the hypnotic chanting are all carefully designed to quiet the conscious mind. They induce an altered state, a trance where the boundaries between the self and the sacred begin to dissolve. In this transcendent space, the journey is no longer an external trek, but an internal arrival. No example captures this cosmic meditation more purely than the whirling dervishes of the Mevlevi order. Their ceremony is a breathtaking visualization of the soul's journey back to its source. As the dervish begins to spin, his right hand is lifted toward heaven to receive God's grace, while his left hand points toward the earth, channeling that blessing to the world. His wide, white skirt billows into a perfect circle, representing the orbiting planets and the never-ending cycle of creation. The spinning itself is a radical act of focus, a deliberate stilling of the inner world through extreme physical motion. It is not a dance of ecstatic frenzy, but one of profound, centered peace, a living symbol of unity with the divine. What are the metaphorical journeys we undertake in our own lives, the burdens we carry, and the repetitive steps we take toward our own versions of meaning or healing? This profound capacity of movement to channel spiritual energy and alter consciousness points directly to its oldest and most intimate role, the mending of the human body and spirit. The air vibrates with a low, insistent drumbeat as a figure, cloaked in shadow and feathers, moves with a frantic, purposeful energy around a crackling fire. This is our seventh narrative, the ancient and universal language of shamanic dance as a ritual of healing and purification. From the frozen tundras of Siberia to the dense rainforests of the Amazon, the shaman's body becomes a conduit, a bridge between the world we see and the unseen realms believed to hold the keys to health and harmony. In these traditions, illness is rarely seen as a random physical event. It is understood as a spiritual imbalance, a loss of soul, or an invasion by a malevolent force. The dance is the precise, prescribed method to diagnose the unseen wound, confront the disruptive energy, and guide the patient, and indeed the whole community, back into a state of equilibrium. A medical anthropologist would point to the undeniable psychosomatic power of these rituals, where the intense, collective belief and the rhythmic, trance-inducing movements can trigger profound physical and emotional releases, effectively mending what medicine alone cannot touch. The shaman's movements are a specialized vocabulary for navigating the spirit world. The vigorous, all-over shaking is not a sign of frenzy, but a deliberate technique to shed the ordinary self, to loosen the shaman's own spirit from its physical confines so it can journey. Through precise animal mimicry, the dancer takes on the attributes of powerful spiritual allies, the bear's strength, the eagle's far-seeing vision, or the serpent's ability to move between worlds. This embodied transformation is believed to allow the shaman to travel to distant realms, to retrieve a patient's lost soul part that has wandered away in trauma, or to directly negotiate with the spirits causing the affliction. Every element of the ritual is designed to facilitate this shift in consciousness. The heavy costume of furs, bones, and feathers is not a disguise. It is a spiritual armor and a battery of power, each item charged with symbolic meaning. The drum is the shaman's horse, its steady, monotonous rhythm the very vehicle that carries the rider's consciousness on its journey. The rhythmic patterns are not random music. They are a sonic map guiding the shaman through the layers of the cosmos, first down into the underworld or upward to the sky, and then safely back home again. We see this communal power beautifully illustrated in the healing dance of the Kung San people of the Kalahari Desert. Here, healing is not a private transaction between a single shaman and a patient. It is a village-wide event, as the women sit in a circle, singing and clapping the complex polyrhythmic songs. The men dance around them. The dance builds in intensity for hours, sometimes all night, until the healing energy, known as boils within the dancers. They enter a heightened state of consciousness, a trance that allows them to lay hands on every person in the community, pulling out sickness and transferring health. The ritual is as much about social medicine as it is about individual cure, mending the invisible tears in the community's fabric and reaffirming their shared life. It forces us to ask a difficult question. In our modern, clinical approach to wellness, what have we lost by largely removing the potent elements of shared belief, collective ritual, and the direct physical channeling of healing intention? These dances remind us that the human experience of illness and recovery is never purely physical. It is a story woven from body, mind, and spirit, a story that has always found one of its most powerful expressions in the language of motion. And just as movement can be used to heal a life, it is also used to honor its most profound transitions from birth to death. The rhythmic, high-pitched chanting of a circle of elders gives way to a sudden, powerful silence. A young man steps forward, his body coiled with anticipation. With a deep breath, he begins to leap higher and higher, his form a series of defiant, airborne arches against the vast African sky. This is the Masai Adumu, a jumping dance that is far more than a test of physical prowess. It is a public, physical examination of a boy's readiness to become a warrior, a living threshold between childhood and adult responsibility. This is our eighth narrative, the cycles of life from cradle to grave, where dance becomes the essential choreography for every critical human transition. Anthropologist Arnold van Gennep gave us the language for this, describing rites of passage as a universal process with three distinct stages. First is separation, where the individual is symbolically removed from their old status. Next comes the liminal stage, a transitional, often sacred period of testing and learning. Finally, there is incorporation, the joyful return of the individual into the community, now reborn with a new identity and role. Dances are the physical embodiment of this entire emotional and social journey. In a coming-of-age ceremony, the movements themselves often enact the shedding of childhood. A slow, shuffling beginning might represent the confinement of youth, which then erupts into the powerful, explosive jumps of the adumu, a display of the strength and endurance required of a new adult. The community does not just watch, they are active participants, their chants and claps forming a sonic container of support and judgment, collectively witnessing and validating this profound change. Wedding dances tell a different but equally vital story. Here, the choreography is almost always about union and harmony. The tempo is often joyful and celebratory, the costumes vibrantly new. The participation rules are strict and deeply symbolic. In many cultures, the first dance is reserved exclusively for the new couple, their intertwined movements a public performance of their new unity. Then the families join, their dances symbolizing the weaving together of two lineages into one. Every step reinforces the social contract of marriage, not just as a private bond, but as a new pillar in the community's structure. Funeral dances present the most poignant contrast. The tempo slows, becoming solemn and meditative, or in some cultures, paradoxically joyful. The costumes may shift to somber colors or, as in parts of Ghana, vibrant prints celebrating the life lived. In Bali, the intricate, graceful pendant dance is performed to welcome gods and spirits, but also to guide the soul of the deceased toward the afterlife, the dancer's graceful hand gestures acting as a map for the spiritual journey. These movements are not an expression of grief alone. They are a powerful communal act that helps the living process loss and reaffirm that the circle of life, though broken by death, continues unbroken for the community as a whole. So we must ask, in our modern world of quiet, often private transitions, what rituals mark the important passages in your own life? From graduation ceremonies to retirement parties, do we still have movements that so clearly, so physically, guide us from one state of being to the next, reminding us that we do not cross these thresholds alone? Having seen how dance charts the intimate journey of a single life, our perspective must now widen to an epic scale, to the movements that tell the story of entire peoples and their wanderings across the earth. The salty air of a bustling port city carries more than the scent of the sea. It carries the rhythm of 1,000 footsteps from distant lands, each beat finding a new home in the cobblestone streets and crowded tenements. This is our ninth narrative, the story of migration and cultural exchange written in the language of fusion dance. In the melting pots of the Americas and the islands of the Indian Ocean, traditions did not just meet. They collided, blended, and gave birth to entirely new forms, creating living records of encounter, resilience, and sometimes painful conflict. An ethnomusicologist might call this process syncretism, the powerful alchemy that occurs when different artistic traditions merge under conditions of immense social pressure, creating something wholly unique from the fragments of old worlds. To understand this, we can deconstruct a dance like the Argentine tango. Listen closely to its rhythm, and you will hear the deep, pulsing heartbeat of the African candombe, brought to the Rio de la Plata by enslaved people. Observe the close, intimate hold between the partners, a clear inheritance from the European milonga and other Old World couple dances. But the tango's defining characteristic, its dramatic, melancholic passion, is not borrowed from any single continent. It is the raw, emotional expression of the poor immigrant neighborhoods of Buenos Aires, a physical testament to the loneliness, desperation, and fierce pride of men and women far from home, forging a new identity in a harsh land. We can trace this journey step by step. The characteristic dragging of the feet, the court and quebrada, may have roots in the rhythmic challenges of dancing in crowded, makeshift bars, but they also echo the weighted, grounded movements of African dance. The bandoneon, the soulful accordion that gives tango music its signature sound, is itself a migrant, a German instrument that found its ultimate voice in the back alleys of Argentina. This story of fusion is repeated across the globe. Consider the complex history of the Cuban danzón. Its formal, elegant structure and the use of violins point directly to its Spanish and French colonial ancestry, specifically the stately contradanza. But then the rhythm section enters, driven by the distinctive timbales and the claves, instruments and patterns with undeniable African origins. This was not a simple layering of one tradition over another. It was a genuine creolization, a new cultural grammar born from the forced and voluntary meetings of three continents. Or look to the saga of Mauritius, born in the sugar-cane fields among enslaved Africans. Its rhythmic, swaying hips and shuffling feet tell a story of survival, while the lyrical themes and the use of European-derived instruments like the triangle reveal the complex cultural negotiations of a colonized island. These dances are more than art. They are archives of human movement, documents of who lived where, who met whom, and what they created together from the fragments of their pasts. What new cultural fusions are being born in our hyper-connected world today, in the digital plazas and global cities where new rhythms constantly emerge? This incredible adaptability, the ability to absorb, transform, and endure, reveals why dance has also been such a vital force during the most profound periods of societal upheaval. A swirling chaos of color and sound engulfs the cobblestone streets, a world turned upside down for a single, glorious day. Here, a dancer in a grotesque, oversized mask depicting a king stumbles and fumbles through a clumsy parody of a royal procession, to the uproarious laughter of the crowd. This is our 10th narrative, the sharp, subversive power of satire and social commentary unleashed in the carnival and masquerade. In these sanctioned spaces of rebellion, from the historic festivals of Europe to the vibrant parades of the Caribbean, dance becomes a weapon of the weak, a tool for the lower classes to openly mock the powerful and invert the rigid social norms that govern their daily lives. These events functioned as crucial social safety valves, a temporary release of pressure that, paradoxically, helped maintain the established order by giving people a controlled outlet for their grievances. The cultural historian Mikhail Bakhtin called this phenomenon the carnivalesque, a time when the ordinary rules of society are suspended, hierarchies are overturned, and the world is viewed through a liberating lens of ridicule and the grotesque. The dance moves themselves are the primary medium for this mockery. Dancers perform exaggerated, awkward versions of the elegant courtly dances like the minuet, transforming postures of refined grace into stumbling, comical displays that highlight the absurdity of aristocratic pretense. They create physical caricatures of public figures, using movements to mimic a judge's pompous gait or a tax collector's greedy gestures, holding up a distorted mirror to the faces of authority. None of this biting critique would be possible without the transformative power of the mask. The mask provides a cloak of anonymity, granting the dancer a temporary freedom from consequence. Behind the painted wood or fabric, a peasant could become a critic, a commoner could perform as a king, and for a brief moment, the powerless could speak truth to power with their entire bodies without fear of retribution. This tradition finds a powerful and poignant expression in the Jamaican Jonkanoo Parade, a tradition with deep roots in the era of slavery. The parade features a cast of stock characters, each one a layered piece of social commentary. There is the king, a clear and often clumsy mockery of the British colonial governor or plantation owner. The cowhead character, with its menacing, charging movements, symbolizes the raw, untamable power that the enslaved community held within themselves, a power they were forced to conceal in their daily lives. And the pitchy-patchy, a figure covered in colorful rags, represents a clever, resilient trickster, outwitting his opponents through chaotic energy and unpredictable movement. Through these danced narratives, the enslaved population could not only ridicule their oppressors, but also affirm their own identity and intelligence in the face of brutal subjugation. It makes you wonder, what are our modern carnivals? Where do we go to collectively laugh at our leaders and temporarily invert the power structures of our own time? Perhaps our political satire shows and viral internet memes serve a similar function, a digital masquerade ball where we don the mask of anonymity to critique the powerful. Yet, while these dances could overturn the social order for a day, other forms of movement were being carefully crafted to represent an entire nation on the world stage, shifting from chaotic satire to calculated diplomacy. Silk rustles and gold thread shimmers under the light of 1,000 candles in a foreign throne room. A hush falls as a troupe of dancers, gifts from a distant king, begins a performance of breathtaking precision and grace. This is our 11th narrative, where dance becomes a sophisticated language of diplomacy and soft power, a silent negotiation of alliance and intimidation between royal courts. Long before cultural exchange programs, these performances were a primary tool of statecraft, a way to display a kingdom's wealth, sophistication, and military discipline without ever discussing treaties or trade. A historian of international relations reminds us that for centuries, the most effective ambassadors often arrived not with documents, but with dancers and musicians, their art a direct extension of their sovereign's might. Every element of the performance was a calculated message. The sheer complexity of the choreography demonstrated the discipline and coordination of the court's subjects, a subtle hint at the order and obedience of a well-trained army. The opulence of the costumes, woven with real gold and studded with genuine jewels, was a brazen display of economic power, proving the kingdom's vast resources. The skill and synchronization of the dancers themselves were living proof of a culture capable of producing and refining such exquisite human talent, a claim of civilizational superiority. Consider the Khon mask dance of Thailand. For generations, this highly stylized performance, depicting episodes from the Ramakian epic, was reserved for royal and state functions. Its intricate, martial-like movements, the heavy, ornate costumes, and the sacred nature of the storytelling were all designed to overwhelm visiting dignitaries, conveying the ancient power, spiritual depth, and unshakable order of the Siamese court. Similarly, the Ballet de Coeur of Renaissance France was political theater of the highest order. These lavish spectacles, often featuring the king and his nobles as performers, were not mere parties. They were meticulously staged demonstrations of the French court's unity, wealth, and the absolute power of the monarch, who often appeared as Apollo, the sun god, around whom all others revolved. A perfect historical illustration of this diplomatic dance unfolded in the 18th century, when a Siamese embassy traveled to the court of King Louis XIV. They brought with them a contingent of performers, not as entertainers but as envoys. Their dances were a deliberate demonstration that Siam was not a backward kingdom, but a refined civilization with its own complex arts and philosophies, worthy of respect and an equal partnership with the mighty French crown. So what are the modern equivalents of these performances? When a nation invests in blockbuster art exhibitions abroad, sponsors international sporting events, or promotes its film industry globally, it is engaging in the very same practice of soft power, using culture to build influence and shape its image on the world stage. And just as dance projected power outward to impress foreign eyes, it simultaneously played a crucial role in fortifying a shared identity from within, turning inward to unite a people. A dusty carriage rattles down a country lane, carrying not a nobleman but a scholar, his notebook ready to capture a fading echo. Across 19th century Europe, intellectuals and artists fanned out into the countryside, driven by a new and urgent mission. They were there to collect the steps of peasant dances before industrialization and urbanization erased them forever. This is our 12th narrative, the deliberate forging of national identity through the folk dance revival. In an age of rising nationalism, as new nations were forming and old ones were seeking to redefine themselves, these collected movements became the raw material for a powerful cultural project. The goal was to define a unique national character, to create a visible, performative line separating one people from their neighbors. As historian Eric Hobsbawm noted, many traditions we perceive as ancient are in fact invented, carefully constructed in the recent past to serve a modern political or cultural need, yet they feel ancient and deeply rooted to those who embrace them. The process followed a clear, three-part formula. First came collection. Figures like Hungary's Zoltán Kodály and Béla Bartók traveled to remote villages with phonographs and notebooks, meticulously recording not just the melodies but the dances that went with them, treating them as vital artifacts of the national soul. Next came purification. The raw, often chaotic, and regionally varied folk dances were cleaned up. Steps deemed too foreign, perhaps showing Turkish or German influence from a shared history, were systematically removed. The dances were standardized, their rhythms regularized, and their costumes made more colorful and uniform than they ever were in actual village life. The final step was institutionalization. These newly polished and pure national dances were then taught in schools, performed at massive national festivals, and promoted as the authentic expression of the people's spirit. The Czechs did this brilliantly with the polka, elevating a lively coupled dance from the Bohemian countryside into a powerful symbol of Czech national identity, distinct from their German-speaking rulers. Perhaps the most profound example of this conscious creation is the Israeli folk dance movement. Beginning in the 1940s, choreographers faced a unique challenge. Jewish immigrants were arriving from over 100 different countries, each with their own distinct dance traditions. To foster a new, shared Israeli identity, they consciously created a new folk dance repertoire. They borrowed the circular hora from Eastern Europe, blended it with the rhythmic steps of Yemenite Jewish dance, and set it to modern Hebrew songs. This was not an ancient tradition discovered, but a new one built from many old ones, designed to make a diverse population feel they were one people, dancing their way into a unified future. It makes you wonder what cultural symbols, songs, or even sports are used today to foster that same sense of unity in your own country. This powerful, top-down construction of identity through movement, however, has a dark and controlling twin. The rhythmic beat of the Pahu drum was silenced by decree. Across the Pacific, the graceful, storytelling hands of the hula were forced into stillness. This is our 13th narrative, the deliberate imposition of control and cultural erasure through colonial dance, a dark counterpoint to the stories of preservation and resistance. Here, movement was not a vessel for memory, but a target for destruction, a tool for severing a people from their own history and spirit. Colonial powers understood that to conquer a land fully, they must first conquer the bodies and the stories of its people. A post-colonial theorist might describe the body itself as the ultimate site of both domination and resistance, the primary territory where the battles over identity are fought and won. The process was brutally effective and twofold. First, indigenous dances were systematically suppressed, missionaries, viewing these powerful physical narratives as pagan or savage, worked tirelessly to outlaw them. They failed to see the sacred libraries of knowledge contained within the movements, interpreting them instead as mere idolatry or immorality. The hula, for instance, was banned by Calvinist missionaries in Hawaii for decades. This was not just a prohibition of a dance, it was an attack on a complete historical and genealogical system. The hula's chants, known as meal, contained the entire history of the Hawaiian people, their lineage back to the gods, their navigational secrets, and their relationship with the land. To stop the dance was to stop the transmission of this knowledge, threatening to break the chain of memory forever. The second, more insidious tactic was forced performance. Colonized peoples were compelled to perform their sacred dances for the amusement of colonial rulers at state functions or in demeaning tourist exhibitions. These were not the authentic, spiritually charged ceremonies. They were hollowed-out, sanitized versions, stripped of their original context and meaning, and presented as quaint, primitive curiosities. The psychological impact of this cultural violence was profound. To have your most sacred rituals, the very movements that connect you to your ancestors and gods, turned into a spectacle for your oppressors, created a deep internal conflict, a form of spiritual schism. It taught people to be ashamed of their own heritage, to see their cultural expressions through the contemptuous eyes of the colonizer. This systematic erasure led to an incalculable loss of historical narratives. Entire cosmologies, medicinal knowledge, and community laws that were encoded in specific dances faded away as the elders who held them passed on without being able to perform them for the next generation. The near destruction of the hula is a stark example, but this pattern repeated globally, from the suppression of Native American ceremonial dances to the outlawing of drumming and dance among enslaved Africans in the Americas. What does it mean for a community to lose its physical memory, to have the very movements that tell it who it is ripped away? This history of profound loss makes the contemporary efforts to reclaim and revitalize these traditions all the more urgent and powerful. From this history of deliberate silencing, our focus must now shift to the modern tools of recovery, the technologies and tenacious scholarship fighting to bring these silenced echoes back to life. A dancer's skirt flares in a burst of crimson and white, her steps a rapid, joyful punctuation against the music's rhythm. What story is this telling? This is our 14th practice, learning to decode the choreographic cipher. Anyone can become a dance detective, looking past the beauty to uncover the narrative hidden within the movement itself. It requires a methodological framework, a specific way of seeing. As dance ethnologist Joanne Kilianohamoku reminds us, dance is culturally specific and cannot be fully understood outside of its context. A single gesture can mean celebration in one culture and mourning in another. The first step is to move beyond the spectacle and break the dance down into its core analytical elements. Start with the movement vocabulary. Are the steps sharp and percussive, or flowing and sustained? Sharp, aggressive movements often signal conflict, power, or martial origins. Flowing, gentle motions might suggest storytelling, romance, or a connection to the natural world. Notice where the movement happens. Is the dancer heavily grounded, feet firmly connected to the earth, or are they light and aerial, frequently leaping? A grounded dancer often tells a story of the land, of labor, or of spiritual connection. An aerial dancer might express transcendence, celebration, or the spirit of a warrior. Next, map the spatial patterns. Does the dance unfold in a circle, a line, or a cluster? A circle, as we have seen, is one of the most powerful symbols in dance, almost universally representing community, unity, and the cyclical nature of life. A long, forward-moving line often suggests a journey, a migration, or a collective purpose. A solo performance set apart from a group usually indicates a special status. This dancer might be telling a specific myth, channeling a deity, or representing a communal hero. Then, listen to the relationship with music and rhythm. Is the movement in perfect synchrony with the beat, or does it play against it, creating syncopation and tension? Lockstep synchronization can point to military discipline or collective ritual. Complex syncopation often reveals a deeper, more playful or spiritually complex conversation between the body and the music. Finally, scrutinize the props, costumes, and the performance context. A prop is rarely just a prop. Is the dancer wielding a sword, a farming tool, or a sacred object? This directly links the movement to a domain of life, be it war, work, or worship. Costumes are not merely decorative. Their color, fabric, and symbolism are part of the text. Who is dancing? When is the dance performed? Is it a harvest festival, a wedding, or a sacred ceremony? The context is the key that unlocks the true meaning. Let us apply this framework to the Mexican jarab tapatio. The movement vocabulary is lively and flirtatious, with the man stamping steps displaying a confident, almost boastful energy, while the woman's steps are often quicker, more evasive, and playful. The spatial pattern is primarily a courtship chase, a dynamic interplay of pursuit and retreat set within a general circular space that includes the community as witnesses. The relationship to the music is precise and celebratory, each step accenting the vibrant rhythm of the mariachi. The costumes are profoundly symbolic. The woman's dress, with its national colors of green, white, and red, transforms her into a living symbol of Mexico itself. The man's charro suit, originating from the horsemen of Jalisco, is a performance of masculine national pride. The context is festive, often a celebration of Mexican culture and identity. When you put these elements together, the hidden narrative emerges clearly. This is not just a couple's dance, it is a story of national romance, a choreographed expression of cultural identity and courtship rituals, performed for the community and for the nation. The next time you watch a traditional dance from any culture, try this analytical lens. Look for the vocabulary, the patterns, the relationship to music, and the context. You will find that you are no longer just watching a performance. You are reading a living history, an echo in motion waiting for its story to be heard. This dedicated work of decoding allows us to truly appreciate the immense effort of the communities and scholars who fight to preserve these living histories against the tide of time. A dance ethnographer does not arrive with a camera alone. They come with time, patience, and a profound respect for the fact that they are entering a living library whose most precious texts are written in muscle and memory. This is the 15th practice, the vital work of preserving intangible heritage, a race against the silent tide of forgetting. These scholars immerse themselves for years, learning the local language, sharing meals, and earning the trust required to understand a dance not as a sequence of steps, but as a complete cultural utterance. Their mission is to document and safeguard these ephemeral narratives before globalization and cultural homogenization smooth them into a single, monotonous story. As the esteemed dance ethnologist Joanne Kilianohomoku argued, the researcher carries an ethical responsibility to represent a culture from an emic perspective, from the inside out, not through an external, judgmental lens. The ethnographer's toolkit is built for this deep, holistic capture. It begins with participant observation, where the scholar learns to perform the dance themselves, feeling the movements in their own body to grasp the physical nuances that a camera alone would miss. Video and audio recording create a precise, repeatable record of performances and the music that gives them breath. But the most critical tools are the interviews with elders, the living repositories who hold the stories, the corrections, and the spiritual meanings behind every gesture and rhythm. This is all cross-referenced with historical research in archives, searching for traveler accounts or colonial records that might offer another piece of the puzzle. The challenges are immense. Gaining genuine community trust can take a lifetime, as these are often sacred traditions, not spectacles for outsiders. This leads to a central ethical debate. How much sacred knowledge should be made public? Does publishing a video of a secret ritual preserve it, or does it violate its very essence by stripping it of its context and power? The goal is preservation, not exploitation. A powerful example of this delicate, triumphant work is the revival of the Cambodian Royal Ballet. After the Khmer Rouge regime nearly exterminated the art form in the 1970s, systematically targeting dancers and teachers, only a handful of survivors remain. Ethnographers and cultural workers, both Cambodian and international, worked with these few masters. They pieced together the repertoire from memory, from smuggled photographs, and from the meticulous notes of earlier researchers. They helped re-establish the school of dance, ensuring that the graceful, symbolic gestures that tell the stories of the Ramayana and embody Cambodian identity could once again be passed down. This was not just about saving art. It was about reassembling a nation's soul from the fragments that tyranny could not completely destroy. It makes you wonder what fragile traditions exist in your own community, held in the memory of a few elders. What songs, stories, or ways of celebrating might vanish without a trace in a single generation, simply because no one thought to write them down, to film them, to learn them by heart. Preserving the record is a monumental act, but it is only the first step. The true victory lies in the next, in reanimating these archives and returning their stories to the living, breathing world. The rhythm is not an accompaniment to the dance, it is the dance itself. In many traditional forms, sound and movement are a single, indivisible language, a unified communicative whole. To understand the full narrative, we must learn to read this synergy, a practice known as Choreomusicology. This interdisciplinary field studies the intimate, often unbreakable bond between a dancer's motion and the music that gives it context and breath. The rhythm, melody, and specific instruments are not just background. They provide the emotional subtext and the structural framework, offering clues that the movements alone might leave ambiguous. A choreomusicologist might explain how a specific, rapid drum pattern does not merely keep time for a warrior dance. It physically dictates the urgency and aggression of his stomping steps. Or how a lilting, ascending flute melody compels a dancer's arms to spiral upward, perfectly mimicking the flight of a bird taking wing. Analyzing this synergy requires listening with your eyes and watching with your ears. Notice how complex polyrhythms in the music, multiple rhythms happening at once, are often mirrored by polycentric movements in the dancer's body, where the hips, arms, and feet are each moving in their own distinct, simultaneous patterns. A sudden, dramatic break in the music, a moment of total silence, almost always corresponds to a frozen tableau in the dance, a suspended moment of high drama in the story being told. The relationship of leadership between sound and motion is also a critical clue. In many social dances, the music clearly leads, with the dancers responding directly to its commands. But in other forms, particularly in highly narrative traditions, the movement can lead, with the musicians watching the dancer intently, their rhythms and accents following the subtle shifts in the performer's emotional state and physical gestures. This complex interplay is spectacularly illustrated in the Kathakali dance drama of South India. Here, the connection between dancer and drummer is a live, visceral conversation. The Kathakali performer's intricate percussive footwork, striking the floor with resonant force, is not just movement. It is a form of drumming with the feet, creating its own rhythm that the Chenda drummers answer, elaborate upon, and accentuate. The dancer's wide, expressive eyes and codified hand gestures tell one part of the epic story, while the explosive, dynamic rhythms of the drums provide the story's pulse, its tension, and its thunderous emotional landscape. The next time you witness a traditional dance, close your eyes for a moment and just listen. What story is the drum trying to tell? Is the melody one of sorrow or of joy? The music is never just decoration. It is half of the historical record, a vital partner in the echo of motion. This deep, audio-kinetic analysis reveals profound layers of meaning, yet modern technology now allows us to peer even deeper, uncovering patterns and connections that have been invisible for centuries. A dancer stands perfectly still, clad in a sleek suit studded with tiny sensors, their body a constellation of potential. On a nearby screen, a luminous digital avatar mirrors their stillness, waiting. This is not science fiction. It is the cutting edge of cultural preservation, where motion capture and digital archiving are revolutionizing our ability to safeguard the echoes of motion. A digital humanities scholar recently noted that these technologies offer us nothing less than a time machine for the body, a way to record the ephemeral art of dance with a precision once unimaginable. The significance is profound. For the first time, we can create an immutable, three-dimensional record of a performance, a perfect digital specimen that can be studied in slow motion, examined from any angle, and shared instantly with researchers and communities across the globe. This is the promise of a living, breathing digital library for future generations. But the true magic lies in what the naked eye cannot see. Motion capture allows researchers to analyze the biomechanical patterns of a dancer with scientific rigor. They can measure the exact angle of a wrist flick, the subtle transfer of weight during a spin, or the minute muscle activations that give a master performer their unmistakable style. These hidden layers of data can reveal the secret signatures of a tradition, the nuanced differences between regional styles, or the specific physical techniques that make a dance form unique. Beyond motion capture, other powerful tools are joining the effort. Spectral analysis can digitally restore and enhance old, degraded film footage, bringing historical performances back to life with startling clarity. Online digital archives are creating vast, searchable repositories where anyone with an internet connection can access rare recordings, photographs, and annotated notations of dances from around the world. A powerful example is the work being done with the Warrain dance of the Pommer people in Australia. Using motion capture, elders are collaborating with technologists to record the dance's intricate, grounded movements, which tell the story of the Sydney coastline. The digital model not only preserves the choreography for the future, but also serves as an interactive teaching tool for young community members, ensuring the story of their land continues to be told through their bodies. This technology is not a replacement for the living tradition, but a powerful ally in its survival. What forms of intangible heritage in your own community, from a grandparent's unique way of telling a story to a local craftsperson's specific hand movements, could benefit from this kind of precise, loving documentation. While these digital tools offer us an unprecedented window into the mechanics of movement, the most profound understanding of a dance's story will always flow from the direct, embodied experience of learning it, of feeling its history in your own muscles and bones. A researcher's muscles ache after months of failed attempts, until one day their body finds the rhythm, and a story locked in the movement for centuries suddenly unlocks in their bones. This is the moment of embodied knowledge, the fifth and most profound practice for understanding these hidden narratives. The French philosopher Maurice Merleau-Ponty argued that the body is our primary way of having a world, not just a container for our thoughts, but the very instrument through which we perceive and understand reality. Some cultural and historical truths are not simply facts to be memorized. They are stored physically in the specific firing of muscles for a powerful leap, in the delicate balance required for a slow turn, and in the shared breath of a group moving in perfect unison. You cannot fully comprehend the narrative of a warrior's strength by reading about it. You must feel the explosive power surge from your own legs as you execute the high jumps of the Masai Adumu. Reading about community solidarity is one thing. Feeling your own steps become one small, indispensable part of a larger, rhythmic circle, where your individual rhythm submits to the collective pulse, teaches you about unity on a cellular level. The physical effort itself communicates the underlying values. The strain in your shoulders from holding a heavy ceremonial object is a direct, felt lesson in the weight of responsibility and sacrifice. The challenge for any outsider seeking this knowledge is immense, wrapped in deep ethical considerations. Learning a dance requires immense cultural humility and often formal invitation. For sacred or closed practices, this embodied knowledge is not a research right but a privilege granted by a community. Some narratives are meant to be felt only by those who inherit them, and respecting that boundary is as crucial as any scholarly pursuit. Anthropologists like Marjorie Franken have described undergoing initiatory dances, where the physical ordeal and the resulting altered state of consciousness provided insights into spiritual concepts that years of interviews never could. The dance did not just describe a spiritual journey, it became the vehicle to experience it. So we must ask you, what is something you know how to do with your body that would be difficult to explain in words alone? The specific motion of tying a tie, the perfect wrist flick for throwing a curveball, the comforting muscle memory of a lullaby's rhythm. This intimate, non-verbal knowledge is what makes dance such a resilient historical vessel, surviving because it lives not on a page but in the very flesh of a people. An ancient parchment can crumble to dust in a vault fire, but a dance passed from a grandmother's hands to a child's body can survive for 1,000 years with astonishing fidelity. This is the profound resilience of the physical narrative, the unique power of kinetic memory to outlast even the most durable written records. To understand why, we must see dance not just as art, but as a sophisticated survival mechanism for history itself. A memory studies scholar might frame this as the crucial difference between archival memory, which resides in external objects like scrolls and books, and embodied memory, which lives within the communal practices of people. An archive can be burned, a library can be looted, but how do you eradicate a story that is remembered by 1,000 different muscles in 1,000 different people? The strength of this system lies in its very structure. The knowledge is distributed across an entire community, not concentrated in a single, vulnerable repository. This makes it exponentially harder to erase. During times of persecution, when written words are forbidden or destroyed, the body becomes the safest place to hide a culture's most precious truths. Furthermore, the mnemonic power of rhythm and melody acts as a powerful recall aid, locking sequences of movement into the mind with a grip that plain text cannot match. The emotional charge of the performance itself, the shared joy, sorrow, or reverence felt during a dance, forges a deep personal attachment to the narrative, ensuring it is not just remembered but cherished and fiercely protected. Contrast this with the inherent vulnerabilities of written history. A text can reflect the bias of its single author or the ruling elite who commissioned it. It can be lost to decay, war, or simple neglect, and for most of human history, written records were accessible only to a tiny, literate minority, while a dance could be known and understood by every member of a society, from the eldest elder to the youngest child. We see this breathtaking endurance in the Sema ceremony of the whirling dervishes. For over 700 years, through the rise and fall of empires and intense political pressure, the core form and spiritual meaning of this whirling meditation have been preserved with meticulous care. The precise steps, the specific tilt of the head, the meaning behind the uplifted and downturned hands, these are not written in a manual guarded by a few. They are carried in the living bodies of the practitioners, transmitted directly from teacher to student in an unbroken chain that has defied centuries of change. What knowledge in your own family is passed down this way? The specific motion for kneading a generation's old bread recipe, the rhythm of a lullaby, the way to plant a garden. These are your living heirlooms, resilient not because they are written down, but because they are performed. Yet this incredible resilience does not mean these traditions are frozen in time. A young dancer adjusts the synthetic fibers of her costume, a modern echo of a garment once woven from wool and linen. The rhythm from the speakers is a fraction quicker than her grandmother used to play, yet the story her body tells is the same one told for generations. This is the living archive in motion, a tradition that breathes. It evolves not because it is forgotten, but because it is alive, adapting to new contexts while fiercely protecting its historical heart. Folklorist Henry Glassy offered a crucial insight, suggesting that traditionalness is found in the ongoing process of creation, not in the faithful replication of a frozen product. A dance that does not change is a dance that has been severed from the pulse of the community that gives it meaning. These changes enter the tradition through several vital pathways. A master dancer, in a moment of profound inspiration, might introduce a new, more expressive turn of the wrist, a subtle innovation that, if it resonates, is adopted by their students and becomes part of the lineage. Contact with other cultures introduces new instruments, rhythms, or movements, which are then woven into the existing fabric of the dance. Shifts in social values can slowly reshape choreography, as seen in partner dances where the roles of men and women become more fluid to reflect contemporary ideals of equality. Even practical considerations, like moving a performance from a village square to a proscenium stage, can necessitate adaptations in the spacing and projection of the movements. The elements that change are often the peripheral aspects, the costume details, the specific tempo, or the stylistic flourishes. These are the adaptable skin of the tradition. The core narrative, however, the emotional essence and the fundamental story being told, is tenaciously preserved. It is the soul of the dance, the non-negotiable element passed down with near-sacred care. The evolution of flamenco stands as a powerful testament to this process. Over centuries, it absorbed the percussive footwork of the Romani people, the melismatic vocal cries from Moorish influences, and the folk guitar traditions of Andalusia. It was a fusion born in the crucible of cultural exchange. Yet through all these changes, its core narrative remained unshaken, the raw, gut-wrenching expression of duend, that profound state of emotion and authenticity. The form expanded and transformed, but its heart never wavered. This constant state of becoming makes dance a uniquely responsive historical source. It does not offer a single, static snapshot of the past, but a continuous, unfolding film of a people's journey. When you witness a traditional dance, you are not looking at a relic sealed in a glass case. You are watching a story that is still being written, a conversation between the ancestors and the present, its echoes growing richer with every new generation that learns its steps. Circles of dancers form in the plazas of Barcelona, their hands clasped not in a chain, but in a woven tapestry of unity. They move with a serene, almost solemn precision to the music of the cobbler, their feet tracing small, intricate patterns on the ground. This is the Sardana, a dance that appears as the epitome of peaceful community, yet its gentle exterior conceals a turbulent heart. How could such a measured, collective ritual become one of the 20th century's most potent symbols of political defiance? To answer that, we must unravel the historical layers woven into its very steps, understanding how this dance came to embody the spirit of Catalonia itself. The region has long maintained a distinct identity with its own language and customs within the broader tapestry of Spain. As one Catalan historian noted, the Sardana is more than a dance, it is the physical form of our collective soul, a circle that no force could break. The mechanics of the dance are a direct expression of its values. The circle, known as the exicador, is open. Anyone, local or visitor, young or old, can join by simply finding a space and taking a hand. This fundamental inclusivity is a powerful performance of communal ideals. The steps themselves are deceptively complex, a series of small, precise hops and crosses that require careful attention and synchronization with every other person in the ring. There is no room for soloists here. The dance demands cooperation, a shared focus, and a mutual reliance to maintain the integrity of the circle. It is a physical lesson in social cohesion. These very elements, the open circle and the interdependent steps, are what transformed the Sardana into a perfect vessel for Catalan identity. In a culture that prized community and self-determination, the dance was a living metaphor. The circle had no beginning and no end, representing an unbroken, eternal people. The fact that it required practiced skill and collective effort mirrored the work of preserving a unique culture within a larger state. The dance was a silent, public declaration that here we are one. This symbolic weight ensured that when a period of intense suppression arrived, the Sardana would not merely be banned, it would be fought for. The serene circles in the square were about to face a storm that would test their resilience, a confrontation that would etch the dance even deeper into the historical narrative it carried. The serene circles in the plaza were outlawed overnight. With General Franco's victory in the Spanish Civil War, a dark curtain fell over Catalonia. The public use of the Catalan language was forbidden. Its flag was banned, and in a direct assault on the region's soul, the Sardana was driven from the squares. The regime understood that to break a people, you must first break their symbols of unity. But a dance is a resilient enemy. It has no central office to seize, no single leader to arrest. It lives in the hearts and muscles of the people, and so it simply went underground. Clandestine gatherings began in secluded village squares after dusk, or in remote fields far from the watchful eyes of the Guardia Civil. To dance now was to risk fines, imprisonment, or worse. It was no longer folklore, it was an act of high-stakes civil disobedience. An elderly woman from a small town outside Girona who danced through those years recalls the feeling. She says, "We would whisper the time and place. When we joined hands, we were not just dancing. We were holding our nation together. The silence was heavy, but the music in our hearts was louder than any cobbler." In that forbidden circle, we were free for 10 minutes. Under this immense pressure, the dance's narrative transformed completely. The simple, communal ritual became a potent weapon of silent defiance. The act of forming that circle in public, however secretly, was a political statement etched in motion. It was a way of telling the regime, you can ban our words, but you cannot stop our feet. You can forbid our flag, but you cannot break our circle. We are still here, and we are still a community. Every synchronized step was a rejection of enforced conformity. The role of the cobbler, the traditional Sardana band, became fraught with danger. Musicians were monitored closely. Their instruments could be confiscated. Yet they practiced in basements and barns, memorizing the complex melodies so that even without sheet music, the sound of Catalonia would not die. There are stories of police vans pulling up just as the first notes of the Sardana began, of musicians being hauled away while the dancers stood in silent, unmoving circles, their defiance shifting from movement to stoic presence. The harassment was constant, a psychological game meant to breed fear and isolation, but it had the opposite effect. The persecution polished the Sardana into a diamond of cultural resistance, its every facet reflecting a stubborn refusal to be erased. This history of brutal suppression makes the dance's subsequent revival not just a cultural homecoming, but a profound historical victory. The dance re-emerged into the sunlit plazas with the force of a long-held breath finally released. After Franco's death in 1975, the Sardana did not just return. It exploded back into public life as a vibrant emblem of a restored Catalan autonomy. Every Sunday, in the shadow of Barcelona's Grand Cathedral, the circles form once more, but now they are acts of open celebration, not clandestine defiance. This weekly ritual in the heart of the city is a powerful performance of identity, a living monument that requires no stone. The dance was officially recognized as a symbol of the region, transforming it from a folk tradition into a touchstone of political and cultural pride. In our globalized world, this creates a fascinating duality. For older generations, the Sardana is a profound link to a painful past and a hard-won freedom. For the young, it is simply a part of their modern identity, a living practice that connects them to their community in a way that feels both natural and essential. Yet maintaining this relevance is an ongoing challenge. One cultural revivalist notes the delicate balance, explaining that we fight two battles, one against forgetting and one against becoming a museum piece. The dance must live in the present, not just be preserved from the past. This has sparked contemporary debates that are themselves a new layer of the Sardana story. There are concerted efforts to integrate the dance into school curricula, ensuring every child learns the steps that once had to be taught in secret. Its role in the modern movement for Catalan independence is equally complex. While not an overt political protest today, the simple, continuous act of gathering in public circles remains a powerful, silent statement of a distinct and enduring national consciousness. The dance's narrative has profoundly layered. The joyful, precise steps now also carry within them the muscular memory of resistance, a ghostly echo of risk that gives the celebration its profound depth. This history is actively shared with the thousands of tourists who now stop to watch. They are encouraged to see not just a spectacle, but an entry point into understanding Catalan history and identity. The open circle is explained as an invitation, but also as a historical act of inclusion that defied oppression. So we are left with a final, reflective question, one that the story of the Sardana answers with a resounding, physical yes. Can a dance alone hold the soul of a people? The unwavering circles in the plaza, a testament to unity that outlasted a dictatorship, demonstrate the immense and enduring power embedded in our collective movement. A prestigious European dance company receives a standing ovation for its latest production, a piece centered on a sacred Native American sun dance. While the audience sees artistic innovation, members of the originating nation see a profound violation, their most cherished spiritual narrative stripped of meaning and displayed as public spectacle. This moment sits at the heart of a modern ethical minefield, the critical distinction between cultural appreciation and cultural appropriation in the study of dance. When we seek to learn from the historical narratives held in the movements of others, our intentions are not enough. We must navigate with a deep and humble respect for the people who live these stories. An Indigenous scholar and activist explains the core of the harm, stating that when you take a sacred dance out of its context, you are not honoring it. You are dismembering a living being, severing its connection to community, land, and spirit. This decontextualization turns a vital, spiritual practice into empty aesthetics, perpetuating the very power imbalances and colonial mindsets that sought to erase these cultures in the first place. So how do we, as curious observers and students, engage ethically? The path of true appreciation is built on several key principles. The first and most crucial is permission. This means actively seeking consent from the recognized cultural authorities or knowledge keepers within a source community before studying, performing, or even filming a dance. It is a process of asking, not assuming. The second principle is attribution and compensation. This involves always crediting the specific community and, where possible, the master teachers who are the sources of the knowledge. If a dance is being used in a commercial context, fair financial compensation must flow back to that community, supporting the practitioners who sustain the tradition. Third is deep contextual understanding. This requires moving beyond the steps to learn the history, the spiritual significance, and the social rules that give the dance its true meaning. It means knowing if a dance is meant for celebration, for worship, or for mourning, and respecting those boundaries absolutely. Finally, and most importantly, is the principle of respecting closed practices. Some dances are not meant for outsiders. They may be sacred rites, initiatory ceremonies, or lineage-specific traditions. Ethical engagement means accepting that some doors are not open to us, and that our respect is shown by our willingness to not look, to not perform, and to not claim what is not ours to claim. For any viewer inspired to learn more, practical guidelines can help you become a respectful consumer of cultural content. Seek out performances by dance companies that are from the culture being presented. When you watch a documentary or read an article, check to see if members of the source community were involved as consultants, choreographers, or primary sources. Support cultural practitioners directly by attending their workshops or purchasing their artwork, rather than supporting third-party imitators. The dance world offers clear examples of both harmful appropriation and positive collaboration. A harmful case might be a pop star performing a simplified version of a complex Indian classical dance as a mere backup routine, reducing a millennia-old spiritual discipline to a flashy accessory. In contrast, a positive collaboration can be seen when a contemporary choreographer formally invites a master from another tradition into the creative process, ensuring the work is co-created, properly credited, and that the narrative integrity of the source material is honored and centered. The future of uncovering these hidden historical narratives depends entirely on our ability to approach them not as treasure hunters, but as humble guests. It is about shifting from a mindset of ownership to one of relationship. The next time you witness a powerful traditional dance from a culture not your own, let your appreciation be guided by these questions. Do I understand the story being told? Do I know the conditions under which it is shared? Am I supporting the people who carry this living history in their bones? Our collective mindfulness ensures that the act of revelation does not become another form of erasure. A digital librarian of the future does not turn pages, but instead asks an artificial intelligence to trace the migratory path of a single, specific foot stomp from West Africa across the Atlantic and into the vibrant streets of Brazil. We are standing at the brink of a new era in historical research, one where the study of kinetic history is being revolutionized by technology and interdisciplinary collaboration. The emerging frontier is a fusion of dance studies, archaeology, genetics, and computer science, promising to uncover narratives of human connection that have been invisible until now. A leading tech ethicist cautions that with such powerful tools, we must be vigilant, ensuring we use them to amplify marginalized voices rather than further entrench old biases or create new forms of digital colonialism. The promises, however, are staggering. Imagine artificial intelligence algorithms capable of movement pattern recognition, scanning thousands of hours of video to identify a shared gesture between dances in Cambodia and Peru, suggesting a prehistoric cultural link lost to written history. Consider neuroscientific studies that map the brain activity of a dancer performing a centuries-old ritual, revealing how rhythmic, repetitive motion can activate the hippocampus and unlock deep, non-verbal memory in ways that pure recollection cannot. We could even see geneticists correlating data from human migration patterns with the geographical spread of specific dance forms, using our DNA to confirm stories of encounter and exchange that have been preserved only in the body. This interdisciplinary approach has the power to rewrite our understanding of prehistory. The movements we share might prove to be a more reliable map of ancient human journeys than pottery shards or tool fragments, a living archaeology of contact written in our very musculature. A current research project is already giving us a glimpse of this potential. Scientists are using biomechanical analysis to study the physiological demands of dances described in ancient Greek texts. By understanding the exact muscle groups, stamina, and flexibility required, they are reconstructing the physical realities of these performances, moving beyond artistic interpretation to grasp the tangible, athletic culture of a society that revered the trained human body. This is not just about recreating steps, it is about feeling the strain and grace of the past in a new, empirically informed way. As we stand at this thrilling crossroads, looking back at all the hidden histories we have uncovered and forward to those still waiting in the silence, we must ask one final, deeply personal question. What lost story do you hope the dancers of the future, armed with these incredible new tools and a reverence for the old ways, will finally help us recover from the echoing depths of time? A lone dancer in a dim hall began this journey, their body whispering a story older than words. We have traveled far since then, from the first classrooms around primal fires to the clandestine circles of the Sardana. We have decoded the martial secrets in crossed swords and uncovered tales of resistance in the shuffle of enslaved feet. We have seen the soul of a people held in a whirling skirt and the very map of creation traced by dancers in the red desert dust. This profound exploration reveals one undeniable truth. Our traditional dances are not mere entertainment. They are living, breathing archives, their every step a line in the chronicle of our collective human experience. They carry the echoes of war and peace, of migration and homecoming, of spiritual yearning and the sheer, stubborn will to endure. The most powerful theme woven through every narrative we have uncovered is resilience. These physical stories have survived the brutal hammer of colonial suppression, the slow erosion of time, and the constant, gentle pressure of adaptation. They have endured because their library is not made of paper and ink, but of flesh and bone, of rhythm and memory, passed from one generation to the next in an unbreakable chain of motion. History, we have learned, is not always found in the silent, dusty halls of a library. It often lives most vibrantly in the moving bodies of people, in the joyous leap of a warrior, in the sacred spin of a devotee, and in the defiant circle of a community that refuses to be erased. So now the lens turns to you. Look at the dances in your own community with new, inquisitive eyes. Ask what story that familiar step might be telling. Seek out the echoes waiting to be heard in the motion around you. We would be honored to hear what you discover. Share in the comments any traditional dances from your own heritage whose hidden histories you find fascinating. Thank you for joining this exploration of the echoes in motion, the silent stories that, in their endless dance, connect us all across time and space.